Hello and welcome to the Digital Forensics Now podcast. Today is Thursday, January 4th, first episode of 2024. Woo! My name is exactly Alex Briggs Brignoni. And as always, aka Briggs. And as always, I'm accompanied by my co-host, the Digital Forensics Examiner of the New Year, the person to see when you said, let's circle back on this task after the holidays, the one you wait in line for, the one and only Heather Charpentier. The music is Higher Up by Shane Ivers and can be found at silvermansound.com, Heather. And let's show our faces here. Thank you for everybody that's live and all the folks that are listening later.
Yeah, your introductions never disappoint. I'm going to have a good one for you one day, and we're going to switch roles.
We'll see about that. Oh, my goodness. First episode of the year, Heather. Awesome.
Yeah. Crazy. 3 weeks. 3 weeks off.
Yeah. Holidays are over, and we're back at work. Yay. Not really.
Not really. Yeah, right. If anybody is on from work, I didn't just say that.
Exactly. Yeah, so talking about holidays, how was your holiday? What happened? What do you do?
It was good. I spent time with family, relaxed, took a week off of work. It was pretty good. How about you?
So went with the kids to my parents' house, so that's always fun. And we came back with a million toys, as one does. Even I got toys. People can see here, the folks that are watching can see my little sign behind me. It says Feliz New Year, because we gotta mix it up. So Happy New Year, but some Spanish in. And then we have a little stormtrooper built of Legos, right? And actually, talking about Legos, see, I'm gonna take that opportunity to show folks a little bit of the Legos that I have in my office. At some point, somebody's gonna be like, you can't be bringing Legos into the office. What do you think this is, right? So I have a little Lego. Let me allow it. Yeah. All right. Can we see it? Not yet.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So look. So I have my police collection here, obviously, as one has. On the oops, sorry about that. On the back here, I got like a little truck with a little doggy park where they train the canines. So I know Geraldine is gonna appreciate that. Geraldine is a good friend of ours from one of the local agencies, and as folks that know her, she has a electronic detection canine, Siri, beautiful dog. And then we have here some unicorns, because some of the stuff that people ask me at work is as feasible as getting a unicorn. And some motorcycles and inclusivity and all that good stuff. So yeah, no,
Very
it was
nice.
it was a good holiday. So no complaints. Hey, Geraldine is there. Yay.
I got my first Legos for Christmas. They're not quite as cool as yours, but they're the flower sets, so I can have Lego flowers around my house.
Oh, those are awesome. Oh, of course, I don't have as much Legos as Kevin, because I see all his marble stuff and all the stuff that he gets. So one day when I grow up, I'll have enough Legos as he has. Awesomeness. So pretty neat. Now we're starting in full. So this episode, for I want everybody to know, we have a whole bunch of tools. So I'm pretty happy, excited about it. A whole bunch of demos that we're gonna give you, and hopefully, time permitting, I'm gonna give a kind of a deep dive on working on data sets, or that's the word I'm looking for. On data structure. That's the word I am looking for. On a data structure. And I want to talk about that, because we told people, oh, this is a hex editor, and this is the hex, and this is this, and this is that, but we never talk about what's the thought process behind, or that you should have behind in your mind when you are about to do it, or so I want to hopefully guide folks through it and maybe get some value from it. So talking about tools, what's the first tool that we have on deck, Heather?
So the first tool we're going to show you is actually a web page. It's called JSON Crack, and it is a tool to visualize, analyze, and manipulate data. So you can bring JSON files in, and it actually has a few different views. I'm gonna put it up on the screen here so everybody can see. So you can import JSON files into this website, and you just click import and click to upload your JSON file. I have one from an iOS full file system pulled out, and click import, and it'll bring that data into this very nice tree graph here. Or I'm sorry. Yeah, nice graph. This one is actually the Apple cache data from the pass files in an iOS device. And you can switch between the graph and the tree views.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and it looks very nice. And you can also take the graph view and use a download function, and it will save out as an image file. So I have one here.
Yeah, and
that I
as you're looking
saved out.
as you're looking for that, folks that are listening,
Mhm.
you have like a little grid, like a little quadriculated paper, if I pronounce that correctly, and you have little boxes. It looks like the old school Visio flow charty type of things, and that really spreads out all those keys and values if they're nested, and makes it such a big difference in how can you visualize how the data is organized.
Yeah. And then here's just what it looks like when you save out the image of the graph view of a JSON file. So I don't know. I could see this having a really nice visual effect for reports.
Absolutely. Like the other type, not the graph one, but the one that's kind of like drop downs type of stuff, reminds me a little bit of PA, of Celebrite's type of
The
format.
tree.
The tree one, yeah. Which again, there's nothing wrong with it. I don't like it, but well, but I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, the good thing is that in a sense, you can also using the tree view, you can kind of open and close the different ones, so that way you can kind of make it easier to kind of to print from top down. So it has its purposes. It's just that visually, I like the other one way better.
Yeah, the graph is much prettier for sure.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but I'm seeing JSON like everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would say JSON and protobufs. I don't know what Do you agree, or you think? What do you think?
Oh, definitely agree. There's tons of JSON in the last couple of cases that I've worked on, and I think this would give it a really nice visual representation.
Oh, absolutely, and either JSON inside SQLite or JSON inside who knows what. So folks, this is one option. I mean, this is not the only one. This is one that I thought, we thought that was kind of neat to show. But this is type of stuff that you need to think about when you're trying to present data to people that are not in our field, right? How can I make this in a way that's easy for them to appreciate and get some value out of it? But yeah, JSON everywhere at all times. like the meme, JSON everywhere.
And here's the website too. So it's JSONcrack.com, and you can just go import your JSON files right in.
I'm assuming it's because it's addictive. Maybe I don't know why they call it that,
Yeah.
but
a little bit of a strange name.
Yeah, right. No, and as always, people should know that obviously we get no type of financial benefit from any of this. We just find stuff that we think is cool and we show it, and we're not haters, but we're also not shills. So we don't push nothing on nobody. Check it out if you want, and if you don't, then that's fine. That's cool too. Yeah, so that's a pretty neat tool. There's a paid version. I guess it allows you to do more stuff, like paid, options, which I didn't look into, but I like the concept. Now there's some other tooling. This one is it's not paid, but it's a great functionality, and it is in regards to investigating Google Drive capabilities on your computers, right? and this is good. People hate on us because we only talk about cell phones because we'll cell phones centric, which is true.
Yeah,
mobile device centric. but this is Google Drive, and it's a Python script, which I always love. We all love. I know Heather loves it. Not.
I'm getting there. I'll have a love for it one of these days. Far away.
in the distant future,
Yeah.
in a galaxy far away. No, and it's a good tool because, as folks know, the way it's designed, like Google Drive to work, is that you don't really download everything on the computer. They say you download the application, you linked it with your Google Drive account or Google account, and let's say you have a terabyte of stuff. That stuff is not replicated immediately to your computer. It's just gonna bog it down. So what it does is it kind of streams the files as you need them. As you're looking for them, it streams them and you get them. So there's a bunch of artifacts that are generated through it.
Yeah, so there's actually an article, and it has really a great breakdown of the types of things that happen when you install the Google Drive Windows application. It will show registry modifications that occur, file system artifacts, what happens when you launch the application, and what happens when you log in. And it's the article really, really does a great job of outlining all of those different things that you might look for when you're investigating a computer, when you have a computer in a case. So
Yeah,
I actually downloaded the application on my computer and ran it against my own Google Drive, ran the script against my own Google Drive so I could see what their report looks like and how it all works. And I'm going to share that. Oops.
Yeah, and even there's you install something on your computer, especially on Windows machines. Well, I mean, it's true on all computers, but on Windows machines we work with them a lot, and it impacts so many different things on that computer. You're gonna find registry entries for that stuff. You're gonna find databases that are generated that keep track of a whole bunch of different things. You're gonna find those accounts that are linked to that Google Drive, and not even counting all the link files, all the kind of the runtime artifacts when you what was I looking for when you run it for the first time, and then how many times you ran. What's that called? The you know what I'm thinking about.
Gonna pop in.
Yeah, somebody in the chat throw it at me.
Somebody's gonna pop in the chat.
Yeah, you run the program once, creates it, and then it keeps count on how many times the program was ran. I just forgot what the name of the artifact is of the thing. Anyways, so Heather is now showing how the report looks. So please describe it for us.
Yeah, so I ran the script against my own Google Drive that on the application, and it creates this really nice report. You can choose HTML. Thank you, Geraldine. There it is.
Yep, prefetch. That was the one. You no question mark. She said prefetch with a question. Yep. No, it's actually that one. Put prefetch with an exclamation mark. That was the one. Thank you.
So it creates this really nice report. You can do HTML or a CSV. The HTML report is way prettier. But it pulled in all of the information about my Google Drive. It has my account number, my display name. It has the picture of me that I have on my Google account. Information about the connected devices. And then I'm just going to zoom in here. Hold on one second.
Yeah, and in typical, examiner fashion, it's a lot of rows and columns, which we all love. Kind of having that detail of all the artifacts.
So it has the synced file tree. So this is everything that I have in my drive. And each of these will show what's in the folder. And they can be dropped down. So it's a complete listing of all the files I have in my Google Drive.
And that's true even if they're not downloaded to your computer, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Well, I mean, and think about it. You have a full visibility of what's over there, like a total listing of it just by running this program.
Yeah, so that's a listing. There is a spot for shared with me files and deleted items. And I do have a few of those, but they didn't pop up under the categories for those. I'm not 100% sure why, but it does say in their description that it will show some deleted and some shared with me files. So there must be something about the ones I have in there. It didn't pull them. But
is that pulling from a SQLite database, right?
Yes.
Yeah. It might be something. Maybe it's not committed fully or something. I mean, I'm guessing. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
then it has, besides the item list, there's the item details. So it'll give the type, the URL direct ID, the title. You get the file size, a modified date, a viewed by me date, whether or not the file is trashed, and the tree path, the MD5 of each of the files. And it actually goes on for quite a while because I have a lot of stuff in this Google Drive.
Well, I mean, can you imagine how useful that is? This is doing a corporate investigation, and you're possibly worried about stuff being exfiltrated in some way or fashion. And now you have a full listing of all the files down to the hash number, hash value, I should
Yeah.
say, the hash value of the stuff, right? So even if you don't have the thing on the device, but you're worried about this exfiltration, obviously you may have the original copy. Just hash it and make those comparisons, and you can really get that investigation moving forward. Again, this is just one made up scenario, but there's many of investigative scenarios we could come up that this could be extremely useful for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did go through all of the data before putting it up on the screen to make sure no passwords were available. So my password is not on the screen today, like last time.
So no free HBO, Netflix, or any
No,
streaming service.
no.
So yeah, no.
You now have my email address, but I don't really care about that.
we're not starting the year with free stuff. All right, I'm sad now.
Yeah.
For folks that are not into the joke, go check the last episode or the episode before that,
Oh,
and
yeah.
and you'll get the joke.
So there's going to be a link at the bottom of our podcast page when we close out that has the article that lists out all of those great artifacts and places that you can go look for remnants of this being installed, as well as the script from GitHub.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kevin is saying that he's done some investigative work, as his day job, and in corporate investigations, and he found it to be extremely useful. So I'm happy that I got some legit validation.
Oh, yeah, great.
of my imaginary scenario. It's not that imaginary, right?
No, absolutely not.
That's awesome. So yeah, so folks, check that out. Again, it's a community tool, and again, really really useful, and makes accessing the data visually really really nice. Which leads to the next point. A great segue there, accessing that data, right? And lately, I'm pretty happy that a Magnet, specifically, after they merged with Graykey, they're actually putting a lot of content out that we kind of assumed, but now it's becoming public domain. So I'm pretty happy that I can speak about this. Magnet, the Graykey Labs portion came out with an article kind of explaining how the process works, how they come up with the access that we need to make those tools. And this is good because the best type of access that we can get from a mobile device, Android or iOS, is a full file system extraction, and those are not obtained easily. Like the phone doesn't want to give it to you. There's no option for that. So right. So in the blog, and it'll be part of the notes. You can see it on the screen, folks that are watching. It explains how they actually leverage exploits, right? And what that means is that they look for a vulnerability in the software, and they're able to piggyback on it and get administrator, root access on the device, which then allows us to do that full file system extraction. And this is a good thing. And I have some thoughts on that, right? This was pretty much limited to law enforcement for many years. I don't want to say many, but for quite a few years. But now we're seeing products coming out targeted, to the private sector, right? Where you can get full file system extractions, without having to be law enforcement. And I believe this is a great thing. It's a good thing. The more access, the better. Of course, with some safeguards for that. And I thought it was pretty good. I know you read the article, obviously, Heather. So what do you do you think about it?
So yeah, definitely the research and exploitation stuff that they're doing is insane. And at the bottom of the article, there's a little link that you can go work doing that as well. So, I mean, what a great job that would be to just go do research and exploitation. It just sounds awesome.
Well, true. You have to be like extremely knowledgeable on that stuff.
Oh yeah, I know.
So that's definitely not me.
I'm working on the Python. But the article is excellent. Everybody should read it. They're doing some really amazing stuff in the Magnet Graykey Labs.
Yeah, and one of the things I really wanted to, as I read it, I thought about is, look, now the access is being, kind of broadly obtained, private sector, government, law enforcement, and it really underscores to me a big point, that verification and validation, right? the tooling needs to be, how to say, the exploits needs to be safeguarded. And obviously the reason for that is we don't want the vendors of the products, right, the Apples and the Googles of the world, to then patch those exploits, and then we don't have the access
Right.
to be able to solve the cases, or find the missing child, or be able to convict the murderer or whatever it is, okay, or to exonerate an innocent person, right? So the question is, well, isn't the exploit needed, right, as part of transparency during the legal process? And I believe that, and that's the big point I want to make, is it's up to you, the examiner, to kind of make sure your stakeholders understand that what gives transparency is not knowing the exploit, because if I put the exploit on your lap, you will not understand it. I won't understand it
Right.
myself. Okay. But it's that verification of that data and the validation of the process. And we talk about that, this in the past, right? Is the source, or the code for Office or Word or Windows, is it open source? Of course not. It's a product. And but still, I mean, do we need the source code to actually confirm that my Word document, is correctly as typed as I did type it, right? Do I need the source code of Windows to make sure that it didn't change something in my forensic process? Well, of course not. And why? Because we tested it, we verified it, we validated it, right? And the concept of kind of that black box testing needs to be really underscored. And a lot of us just say, well, this is good because the tool did it. And, we're going to have somebody from Celebrite or from Magnet come in and testify that this is good. You should test. You should take known data, extract it from those devices, right? Make sure that performance, like Josh is saying, validate that performance. Yeah, what I put on one end in my phone is also in the extraction after it goes through the tooling, right?
Right.
And this is important, because just saying the tool did it will not cut it, right? And I think this also gives an opportunity for open source tooling to grow, because now having the access to the full file system is not just law enforcement. Now anybody can get some of those and then kind of build, right? And I say that kind of self-serving manner because I have an open source tool just for that. And I say me, but the community, right? We kind of work on it. So if you're so inclined to do the analytical portion, there's open source tooling that will definitely need your help on doing that. I don't know, you have any other thoughts on the article, because it has so many things. I don't want to just dominate the whole conversation.
Yeah, no. I would just put up Jessica's
Mm.
comment here. It's the examiner's responsibility to verify the results, but we also need to know how else could data get there and remove bias from scenario. So excellent.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, that's hard. Is also true, because just because it's there doesn't mean it got there how you think it got there. You have to
Right.
actually figure that out, especially if
Do
it's
some
your
work.
key. Oh yeah, if it's your key piece of data, you have to do that. If the case hangs on it, you have to do that. An example that I was tasked with recently, of looking with the provenance of some media. Provenance, what that means is, was this stuff, this picture, this image, whatever it was it generated with the phone, which is different from receiving it from somebody else, right? And there could be really strong implications if it's made with the phone versus not, right? And one of the artifacts that I like a lot, one of my tooling that I use, of the many I use, is Physical Analyzer. The latest version, Ultra 8 or whatever it is, it has a media origin capability, which it tells you, hey, based on a collection of factors, and we talked about this in previous episodes, we believe that this is actually generated by the device. Well, this is the thing, right? You can't just say, well, that's true because it's there, right? Because those factors are a conglomerate of factors. You can make a decision, but some of those factors, you have to verify them, because the tool might believe that, hey, yeah, I hit all the points, but when you do it manually, you might believe that, no, I disagree with this assessment, because it's not black and white. And as forensic examiners, we're not used to that. We're used to true or false binary situations, where me as the examiner, I'm like, this there or it's not there. But that's not how it works. And again, I'm gonna do one of my custom not rant, what word I'm looking for, Heather. My
You
not
can go with rant.
um, in any other endeavor of knowledge, there's tolerances, right? If you're an engineer and you're dealing with a building, well, on these circumstances, the tolerances for this building to something to happen is, and there's a range, right? If you're doing a car, crash investigations, well, the speed is, and there's some sort of a range of, well, we believe it was about this speed around, right? It's not zero or ones. And let me tell you, that's how life is. That's how computers are. That determination of, is this image created by the phone? There's many factors, and you might have them all or not. So then you have to make a determination. What's my tolerance level on this, and how can I explain that? And hopefully that's making sense to the folks that are listening. What I did was I took my trainee, and we took the key piece of evidence that we needed to validate, and we went one by one, and we look at the metadata. We verified, is the metadata the same as the phone, right? The timestamps consistent with something that's created on the device? Do we have photos.sqlite data about that image? Do we have a thumbnail created when we expect it to be created when it's generated by the phone? And is there more than one copy of it? And if there's more than one copy, why is there more than one copy? Is it in the SMS type of structure? Is it because it was send, receive, and after make all that determination, a few of them we determined that they were not generated by the device, and some others were, and we validated the tool. The tool, we have no discrepancy with the tool at that point, and that's a good thing. Okay, but the answer when question is this image created by the device, the answer cannot be yes because the tool told me so. That's not the answer, right? It's got to be yes because what I just told you. We checked this A, B, C, D, and E, right? And that's something that now that we have full file system access, kind of more broadly for everybody, we need to start thinking in those terms. I'm going to call somebody from the company to come and say something about it. That's not going to cut it.
Yeah. Well, with the full file system access, there's so many more artifacts that you should be able to take whatever your key artifact is and tell the story of everything you just said, where it came from, make sure everything is valid. And there's so many more artifacts in the full file system that support you being able to do that. So
oh, absolutely. And we have to look at it, and I truly believe this, like in science, right? You can say, well, we have a data point, and we have 3 or 4 more data points that kind of converge, right? Then I feel better. The more data points I have, the more my level of confidence is higher. That tolerance level increases because I have more. Now I might have less, and you have to be able to convey that. Look, we're pretty sure, or this is what we have, right? Or it could be as simple as I don't know, or
right.
And that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
We're there to state fact, not to impose our opinion.
Right. Saying I don't know is okay.
Yeah, no, and Jess again makes a good point, right? You can look at the timeline, look at what things happen around that important thing, and how this operating system is being impacted as something is happening, and that will be one of those converging lines of evidence to be able to paint that picture as you're saying, Heather.
Right.
Yeah.
So out of the tooling a little bit, we kind of wanted to talk about an article that came out. I love this article by Mattia, and it is, has the user ever used the application? So he has an entire blog post that asks that question and tells you how to answer that question, whether a user has ever used or installed an application. He shows how you might check to see if an application has been installed on a device, whether it be Android or iOS, relevant files, databases to analyze and determine if it was installed. I think that step is so important. So I know that I actually had this misconception when I first started doing forensics. It's in PA, it's under the installed applications, it's installed on the device. And that is not true. So anything that is in your Celebrite report that's under or any report, any tooling report, doesn't have to be Celebrite, that's under the installed applications section, it does not necessarily mean that it is currently installed on the device. It may have been previously installed and uninstalled. But the blog goes on to discuss relevant files about iOS and Android in that aspect. And discusses how to go check and see if the application was ever installed, and then talks about testing and validating this. There's a whole step-by-step guide in the blog that talks about how to test and validate all of these factors. I'm going to put up the link, but this will be on the bottom of the podcast site as well. The link to the blog. If you haven't had a chance to read it yet, read it. Excellent blog. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and at some point you might think, well, why doesn't the tool vendor, in the header tell me all that explanation? Well, this is the thing, right? It's up to you, right? The tooling will have different sections, and the tooling provides you the source of it. So certain databases will have, like in Androids, installed, and it will have all the apps that were installed, like you said, at one point in time. It might not be installed currently, right? But you need to know that. You need to know that that database behaves in that manner. It keeps track of possibly everything that was there at some point. I say there, but let me rephrase that. That was installed using that account, because it might not have been installed on that phone. It might have been installed on another phone, and it's part of the installed apps that your account has dealt with at some point in the past, right? And I don't know, if folks have done this. I do it all the time. When you go install something from the Google Play Store from the computer, and you have multiple in Android, multiple devices under your account, you can select to which account you want to which device you want to install it from your one account, right? And then that gets wirelessly sent, like the instructions, and your phone gets the app. Well, guess what? That's part of that database now, and on your other devices. Does that make sense? So that knowledge, the tooling will not have a full explanation for you on that. You need to know that as you're coming in to use it, right? Imagine you're a mechanic, and I'm a mechanic, and I want every car part labeled from the manufacturer so I can do my job. Well, no, you're the mechanic. You got to know what wrench to use. You got to know what a transmission is. We're not going to label it for you. You need to know what that is, right?
Definitely.
Let me share something real quick that Josh said. Again, I love his comments. He says context is key, not only with other data points within the digital evidence, but also within the physical evidence, interviews, surveillance footage, the crime scene. And we get so, some like blinded. Folks cannot see me, but I'm putting my hands next to my eyes. Like, what's that called when you put on horses so they cannot look to the sides? What's that called? You know what that's called?
Blinders.
Well, that's a great, okay, blinders. In Spanish, it's different.
Right, I'm pretty sure. Oh, okay.
Yeah, but blinders work. That we have these blinders, and on the forensic stuff, on the computer stuff. No, the context of what's happening with the investigation in general will inform how your forensic work is effectuated. Yeah, but go check out Mattia Epifani. He's an incredible examiner from Italy. We talked about him in the podcast before. He teaches for SANS as well, and he's a great luminary on these type of stuff. So go check that out.
Yeah, he also, in the testing and validation part of it, is using more than one tool, which I love, because so many people, I think, don't use more than one tool, but it's so necessary to use more than one tool when you're trying to validate your results. And obviously yourself, your knowledge, it will be key to that.
Yeah, and even some of that valid. How can I say this? When you're trying to figure something out, and hopefully with time permitting, we got to speed it up a little bit. I'll give an example of that. You need to look at a data set to different views, right? For you to build a clear picture. And people are like, "Oh, that's not true." Well, I'll give you a real example at the end, more close to the end. So. Awesome. So with that being said, right, let's kind of step back a little bit and off from tooling and that type of technical stuff. And let's talk a little bit about more the human aspect, especially in the new year, right? What are your digital forensics goals for the year? So that's going to be a topic. And I was telling Heather, me trying to be funny, but not really. I was telling her, well, my resolution for the new year, I want to go from 1080p to full 4K, HD. And I took that joke at work, like the what, and like resolution monitors, and they're like, okay, never mind. I'll put myself out. So yeah, I'm going from 1080p to 4K. But in reality, like what are we foresee or plan for ourselves for the next year? And I'm gonna start with myself. I'm gonna share some of mine. So my hope for this from the forensic new year, right? And maybe for the year in general, independent of forensics, I want to do a couple of things. The first I want to do is I want to hopefully do 2 artifacts a month minimum for the leaps. And for those that are not familiar, it's a tool set that I contribute to in for forensics on mobile devices. So make 2 a month. So at least I I covered that for January, so I'm good. I did the 2 for January. Excuse me. So that's one. So that's and then I want to do 6 mobile forensic examiner. I'm sorry, mobile forensic explainer videos this year. That's on top of the podcast that we do all the time. And what those videos are is me. I take an artifact and I try to explain some interesting facts about it, and then it could be like a reference material for anybody. So hopefully we'll do 6 of those a year because they're hard to put them together, make all that data and the screenshots and demos. It takes time, so hopefully I can do 6 a year. I want to read more for coding and data forensics books, which is funny because I have a data forensics book. I'm not done with it, and I'm already kind of buying the next one without finishing the other one. And then listen to some stuff. And I want to continue to exercise consistently. And you'll be like, well, that's not digital forensics. Let me tell you, how your mind works is really tied to how your body operates and how your emotional state is. It's a connection between those 3 things, right? It's like if you as a person, that you're the stool, and those 3 legs are gonna be your physicality, your emotionality / spirituality, and what else did I said? And your mental state, physical, and I forgot, and emotional, right? You need to work on those. And if you want to do good work, intellectual work, your body needs to support that, right? You got to eat right, you got to exercise. So believe it or not, it has a lot to do with it, and you'll feel better and be more effective in what you think if you're aware of how you move and eat and how do you feel emotionally. And a weird one is I want to relearn cursive for whatever reason. Last time I wrote
How
in
did you
cursive.
forget it?
Well, my handwriting is so horrible in like block type of writing, and I said, you know what, I haven't written in cursive since 3rd grade, so I might teach myself cursive really nicely, remember it, and then make that my standard hand script. So we'll see if that works.
All right. So nobody's going to be able to read whatever you write anymore.
Well, nobody that's been born in the 90s onwards will understand me, but people that have been born before that surely do. Yeah, I need to get a fountain pen to work on that. Actually, Geraldine makes a good point. We need to work on the VLeap. VLeap is like again another tooling that we make for vehicle extractions, and I'm counting on you, Geraldine, to help me with that. If you push me, we'll do it together. So now I'm putting you, throwing you here in the middle here, throwing that out there for you.
Geraldine now knows her 2024 goal because you've assigned it to her.
Exactly. Help me with this thing, please. No, she's so kind.
At least she's agreeing.
Yeah. No, we got some images that we're trying to. We got so much to do in so many little hours in a day. But I'm kind of joking about it. But she has some images that we'll be able to procure, and hopefully throughout the year we can give support to some of that. So yeah, so those are my goals. How about yours, Heather? What do you have?
So I would like to learn Python in the way that I can actually do it and help contribute to things like the leaps or my own, put it to work in my own cases. I am struggling with it, but I know somebody who might help me.
Who?
I think I see him right there. But yeah, so I'm kind of struggling with it, but I want to, for the end of the year, be able to do it on my own without saying, hey, can you help me? I have no idea what I'm doing constantly. I actually am also starting the exercise stuff for the 2024 goal. I have somebody that's pushing me, telling me, are you walking? Have you gone to the gym today? So yeah. And actually, you know what, that's a great goal. Cause you're right. I feel better and it makes me more productive throughout the day. So I see your fireworks.
Do you know what the funny part? So for folks that don't know, I'm thumbing up and some fireworks came out behind me. The funny thing is that I had no idea how that happened.
Oh really?
Yeah, I need to figure out. It must be something in the system that we use for streaming that does that. It's actually great timing. It came out great, but I had no idea how it happened.
It worked out. Um,
Oh, that's
Great
hilarious. All right.
timing. I also want to start. So I'll go through my cases and find artifacts and be like, oh, this is how that connects, and this relates to that, and do I'll go through an entire artifact for my case, but I never write it down. Right. So I want to write more things down and share them with people. So that's a
Yeah.
goal of 2024.
Oh, and that's a great goal, especially the share. I mean, all of them, but the sharing part. We know something and learn something, and then it dies with us. And like, no, but, let everybody else know it. And you're like, well, people
Yeah.
already might know it already. Even if they do, they don't know how you do it and how you
Right.
present it and
Right.
what you bring to the table. So no, please do. Like
Yeah.
everybody, please
I'll
do.
mention it to my coworker Kevin. I'll be like, Kevin, get over here. You have to see this, and we'll go through it all. And then I just needed to get past just my office and share more things throughout the year.
Yeah, absolutely. Alex is saying, I wonder if triggering the fireworks graphic left an artifact. I need to look into that because I had no idea how that happened.
That was good timing.
Yeah, it was great. If I try to do it like that, it's not gonna actually happen. Yeah, so I want to quickly discuss like some thoughts on goals that you might set. Because you might be listening and saying, well, yeah, I have those goals too, but I might not have the expertise to do certain things. I don't think I'm ready to write an article about a deep dive on something, right? Because I might only be 6 months into this job, or I'm still studying, in school, in university, college, whatever it is, or certifying, right? So we have a list of different things that you might think about for the new year and for life in general. So I'm gonna mention for new examiners, and so I'm gonna start with that, and maybe Heather can grab intermediate, and we go from there. So the first thing for the year is, look, if you're new into this field, if you haven't finished your courses, then finish your courses, right? That's kind of an obvious goal, right? Finish your classes, finish your certifications, all the mentoring. And if you don't finish it, that's fine. Just keep working on it consistently. Perfection is not the goal. Consistency is the goal. And it's like, again, it's like as you do things consistently, it's like compound interest, right? It's gonna accrue, and when you look back, you'll be like, wow, look all this money I have now. Well, you have to work consistently towards it, right? Don't overshoot it. Just do it best you can, and that will work, right? Again, be part of the different community, digital forensics and incident response community. Doesn't mean that you have to be like the person that brings the new things into the community, but you can read, you can listen, you can lurk a little bit, ask questions, and participate, right? Your questions are needed, right? Your curiosity is needed. So if you're new, you still can contribute with the right questions and the right and answers you can also provide. Okay. Something I recommend a lot is watch court testimony from others. It doesn't matter if it's good or bad. Watch all that with a critical eye. Whatever you do in life, have a critical eye. And I say critical eye not to just beat on people. You suck. No, it's like, what can I learn from this? What things work or might not work? And if there's some videos of folks, forensic folks that testified. Geraldine had a big high profile case when he has to testify, and she'd be like, no, don't tell people to watch it. Well, I'm gonna tell them to watch it. So we'll share that link later. And because you learn a lot. If somebody in your team is gonna go testify, go sit at trial and get a feel for the environment and for the testimony, for the questions that come from the defense, from the prosecution, or whatever it is, right? You learn a lot just by listening and understanding that. Read presentations about read books about presenting or presentations, right? Soft skills like that. It's soft skills, but not really soft. It's an important skill. How do I talk to an audience? How do I write something in a way that's clear and concise and precise, right? Can my workplace pay for Toastmasters for me so I can, not be afraid to speak in public? A lot of your effectiveness, is gonna hang on how well can you communicate that, and we need to work on it. And myself, I try to work on it all the time. Obviously, I have an accent, and I tend to eat some words, and I try to work on my pronunciation and enunciation as best as I can, right? And how do I present things? Heck, having this podcast is a way of me to practice and try to get better. So that's something that you could do even as a beginner, right? And there's a lot of stuff that as you progress, you can do as an intermediate, right?
Yeah. So once you get a handle on some of the basics as a beginner, you could work on verification and validation of data. You could learn, how does the tool do what it's doing, instead of just pushing the button, seeing all of those parsed artifacts. Learn what the tool's doing, learn where that data is stored. Dive a little deeper, go to some of the advanced classes that are available. Learn some kind of scripting, or learn about data structures. If you want to learn about data structures, you can listen to Alexis or go take Jessica's data structure class, but go a little further than just that initial beginner stage and beginner courses.
Yeah, and I had actually it comes to mind recently on the Providence request that I had one for also dates for searches, and the searches, some of them came from some databases that had no timestamp for that entry of that search. I'm not gonna go delve into the details, right? But when you look at a search from Google, you have the search, right? Google.com / and then a whole bunch of parameters, like that you can actually read, and you can read, oh, look, he was searching or she was searching for something. And then after that, a whole bunch of parameters. Parameter means, are things that's going to go through the search. It seems like gobbledygook, right? Well, it's not, right? Some of those are actual timestamps, and there's tools like Unfurl. There's tools, a tool made by Ian Whiffen to decode some of those, and you get a timestamp, right? That means that as an intermediate examiner, you just don't stop because the tool had no timestamp. Oh, well, look, there's a search, no timestamp. Well, that URL has meaning. Put it in Unfurl. Get Ian Whiffen's Double Black, I think is the website, a blog or site, doubleblack.com, and grab the tooling and get those timestamps, right? And then you can say, look, here's where this search was and when it happened. Because you're an intermediate level, you should be able to go beyond that. You should be able to understand, what's the difference between a binary XML and a regular XML and how to deal with it, right? Which leads to a higher level, which is, what goals can you set as an advanced examiner if you know these things? Well, don't keep it to yourself. Take some of that knowledge and get presented to your team or some others. Jessica is mentioning also Google Serpent from Phil Moore, and it's a good tool. From my perspective, Unfurl has kind of superseded, in my opinion, any tool to deal with breaking down URLs. I believe Unfurl is a superior, like the best, right? And this is no dig to any other tooling out there, but Ryan Benson has done an incredible job in parsing data from all sorts of URLs that you might come across. So I really recommend Unfurl. I think is the best. That being said, so give that information out, put it out there with your teams, with the public, right? If you now at this level you learn some scripting, then make that scripting public. Share it with the community. Start thinking about reverse engineering apps. And I say that because we mentioned previously how getting full file system access is more broad, because we have law enforcement and the private sector having access to full file systems. Well, guess what? When that happens, I believe app developers, instead of leaning on the operating system to make or keep their data obfuscated or private, now they're actually depending on their own. Give me an example. Instead of depending on the keychain to maintain encryption, they might move away from that, and the app itself keep its own internal encryption, independent of the keychain, or independent of whatever systems Apple or iOS has to secure data. They may want to handle it themselves, if that makes sense, okay? And that happens. So then what? What are we going to do? Well, as examiners, advanced examiners, set that goal to learn a little bit of reverse engineering. How can I go about and looking at the code and figuring out how can we solve this problem, okay? And a big one is take time to invest, to understand management science of things, of people, and time, right? And it doesn't matter if you're not supervising anybody, if you don't have any reports. When you're an advanced examiner, I believe you need to get those skills. And just because you've been doing it for 20 years doesn't mean that you know how to manage it. I'm going to go out on a limb and say you're going to suck at managing that stuff, because you've been in mesh in the work, in the technical work, and you know nothing about management. You might think you do, you don't, right? It's a different skill set. It requires training, it requires education, reading, and all that. Depending on mentors, the same thing. So if you experience, think about that. How can I manage better these things? And you never know what role you can grow into when you do that. So you dominate the technical side, and then you start dominating the non-technical aspects of the job, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's tons of stuff. Oh, well, last one. Get peer reviewed if you can.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're an expert. Go get peer reviewed. Share that in a really formalized manner, so we can take it into court. So just a quick note there. So
So,
yeah, let's go into some tooling, because the show's gonna go long a little bit, but I think it's worth it for two reasons. We're gonna cover an update on a great tooling by Exordia, a great company led by Jessica Hyde. So Heather's gonna show us some of the updates to their tooling, super awesome, and then we're gonna talk about really technical nerd stuff to close the show. So let's get on it.
yeah. So, there was a New Year reveal from Hexordia. We previously talked about the tool available on Hexordia called Input Output Syslog. Well, it has changed names and is now Evanol. The capabilities have also changed. There's some updates. So I'm going to actually show everybody some of the updates. Let me share my screen here. So it has a whole new look, which is really cool. I'm going to plug in my iPhone.
And it's totally graphical user interface. It's beautiful, nice colors and everything.
So when I plug in my iPhone, I have an iPhone XS. I plug it in. I get all of the general information and device state and identifiers related to my phone. And the whole interface is now new. There's some new key features. Besides the UI changes, it's faster. There's the option, if you go to settings, to pair or unpair your device. You can supply your own pairing record, and it will also handle multiple devices now. So if I plugged in an additional device, I can use this drop down here to toggle back and forth between multiple devices that are hooked up to my system. And I'm going to hit monitor and run it for a moment here.
Yeah, so what are we seeing there?
So we are seeing all of the system information flying across the screen. It's live monitoring and analysis of the logs from the iOS device.
That's as it's running live. That's beautiful. By the way, I had to make a quick comment. Folks that are watching can see this. There's a little like a little lizard there, right? The logo for it, and it has like a USB connector at the end. I think it's the cutest logo ever.
It is very cute. Yes.
So I like it. Little lizard there with a USB tail.
And then you can pop over to the Analyze tab, and all of the analyzed data here is starting to pop up. There's new artifacts. So there's default wallpaper, airplane mode, volume artifacts, ringer artifacts, the flashlight, added lock state, camera, and application state artifacts. So you can choose over here on the right-hand side artifacts that you want to include. Just gonna pop back for 1 second. But one of the really big features that was announced for the new year is there's now a new eLeap report option. I'm just going to click that, and you can, so the eLeap report function, you click it and then save it out. And I am going to stop sharing with you for 1 moment and pull the report up.
Yeah, I'm really happy. It's obviously it's based off of the community project that I lead. So I'm really honored and proud that it's been adapted and used in this tool. So I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, so this may look familiar to anybody who uses iLeap and ALeap. we now have the eLeap report. It has some of the same category, well, all of the same categories here where you can look at the details, the device details about my iPhone, the scripts that are run, talks about the scripts that are run, and the processed files list. And then along the left-hand side are all of the artifacts. This phone I don't use that much, so there's not a ton of artifacts on my phone. It's one of my test phones, but we have application launch. So I launched mobile SMS, the App Store, and mobile notes previously in the day, and those come up in the application launch section. There's battery percentages, and yes, it was at 1%. I let it die. I know.
I'm shaking my head in disappointment. Like, if you send me a screenshot of your phone, the first thing I'm gonna look is how much battery you have. And I will judge you, just so you know.
This is a test phone, though. Mine always has at least 50%. Talks about the different Bluetooth devices that are scanned. The device orientation. So we have portrait and face up, landscape, and the volume button. I hit the volume button up once a little earlier today, so I have an artifact for the volume button.
Yeah, and people might think, well, who cares if you hit the volume up button? Well, I care, because it shows that the phone was physically being manipulated in some way, actually not some way, hitting the volume up button at a specific point in time. Does that make sense? And if that specific point in time is indicative of something important in my case, I can say, yeah, this device was in the hand of somebody. And looking at the contents on the phone, I can tell you who that somebody was. Does that make sense? So folks, you should not sleep on this. You may think, well, how much battery? Well, who cares? Well, I do care a lot. If the battery is the levels going up or going down, it indicates something about the real world. If it's going up, that thing is plugged in, right? And if I can find what it was it? If I can find that it was plugged into a car, right? Does that make sense? So there's a lot of value in all this type of stuff that we're seeing here.
Yeah, there absolutely is. Continues to show the device state, the general details about my phone. I have mobile identifiers, so my phone number, the IMEI, ICCID, which carrier I have it hooked up to. And then I have scanned networks, and actually this network is my home network. It was picking up all of the options of my home network, and a report I ran yesterday actually picked up the neighbors as well.
And again,
it's just some of the artifacts.
Oh yeah, and we cannot, underplay how important those are. That's just good stuff.
I did skip one thing back in the UI. There's new sorting options, and you can select certain features in the UI. Previously, there wasn't that capability.
Yeah, the graphical user interface is such an improvement, and it makes it. I even told Jess, this is just so smooth. It installs really smoothly, and the usage is pretty much flawless. So I'm pretty happy with it. It's a community edition, obviously, so that obviously it assumes that there'll be a non-community edition. So this tooling, it's growing. So just keep your eye on it.
So here's the website for anybody who wants to go check it out. One thing I noticed when I was using it, so I used the original version as well, and now the updated version, it is much faster than the original version. I definitely noticed that.
Yeah, and is it something that I like? Is things to be faster? Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So again, thanks, Jess, and all the developers and the team that she put on together. You're all awesome. So we appreciate that. Another tool for the community to make things better. So thank you so much.
So one of our last topics here, what's new with the leaps? And I believe you're going to show us some of the new artifacts that you have with the leaps and some of the updates you've made.
Yeah, you're correct. And before I get in, just saying that the new tooling is 2 times as fast. So that obviously is noticeable. So
see, yeah, I really noticed it. That was one of the things definitely right away. I was like, whoa.
So that's awesome, and I bet it'll keep growing. So what's new with the leaps? So this is gonna be the most technical part, and I appreciate the folks that are gonna stick with us beyond the hour. I would like to hear some feedback if you think this type of section it will be good for the future. What I'm gonna do is talk about what's new, but then show a little bit behind the scenes in more technical detail what it entails to do a simple, quote unquote, simple report. Because I believe as examiners, we need to start developing the mindset. We have the tools, we have the technical know-how, but what's the mindset to apply it? So please let us know. Hit us up on that, and you can put the comments straight up on LinkedIn. We won't get offended. We won't get mad, right? If it doesn't work, let us know. If it works, let us know. And but please do let us know why. Either way, right? All right. So this is what we got. Let's start with what's new with the tooling. First of all, again, a big shout out again to Johan Polacek, a good friend from Switzerland that I wish I would, professor, I wish I was there with him in Switzerland. Beautiful country. And he's adding a whole bunch of stuff. I don't have the time to do it today. It's behind the scenes, so not behind the scenes, like under the hood. That's a better description. Under the hood improvement in regards to how the tooling manages certain things and how it uses updated GUI libraries, updated, takes old libraries that were not efficient and replaces them with libraries that are better. So again, a big shout out to you, Johan. We appreciate it. We got the team. We're building the team up to work on the reporting for this year. So I'm really excited about that. And when I say that, like we're having these conversations like maybe 15, not 15, but an hour ago before we started the show. So we're working on it. So what do we have? Well, first of all, I'm going to show some of the updates with a I'm start with SegB. So as we discussed in the last episode, iOS devices, including Macs, we're moving from SegB files to another version of them. So we call them version 1 and version 2. Okay, and let me show you a report. Right. So this is a report, and I cleaned it up even more after I took the screenshot. But you can see here the Wi-Fi report. This is done from a SegB file format, and you see the timestamp of when this Wi-Fi connection happened to a device, right? And I believe this is a router, correct, Heather? The AnyDancer device.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's my home Wi-Fi. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, Heather provided me with some of the test data, so I appreciate it. Thank you, Heather. All right, so this is pretty useful. And I have now I'm showing now another one is the airplane mode, right? Was the device put in airplane mode? Super important. You might need that for your case, and that's all is kept within this biome directory, which contains SegB file formats within it, right? Which contain within it protobuf files, which contain within it all the data that you need. It's really nested, right? Now, there's more. I'm updating more. Some of the things that I found interesting was, at least on Heather's test data, I believe what's happening is if you update from iOS 16 to iOS 17, you will see SegB files version 1 and then SegB files version 2s, right? So I think what's happening is as it updates, it leaves the old ones there, but then starts working on SegB2 files moving forward. So when you do your examinations, you got to keep your eye on both. So now let's do a little bit of technical stuff that I described previously. All right. I'm going to share with you, I'm going to open one of these SegB files because I want folks to kind of understand a little bit of what the thought process behind doing this type of work is. Let me open it up. So I have a SegB file for the Wi-Fi. And the first thing you might want to do is you want to look at stuff from different angles, okay? And at this point, I'm actually going to share my full screen, and I'll try to describe the best way I can for folks that are not watching, they're just listening. So let me see, how can I share screen one? Is this the one? Yes, this is the one. All right, so hopefully folks can see that. So I opened this SegB file, and I open it with a hex viewer, all right? The first thing I want you to notice is on the, let me move this away, on the top right, you see that the file starts with an X, and then it has some values, and then on the kind of third line, 40 bytes plus, you see there SegB on the file, right? This makes it a SegV version 1 file. SegB version 2s have that SegV indicator, or a magic number at the front here, at the beginning, the first 4 bytes of that file. All right, not back here, 30 something bytes into the file. Actually, I can tell you exactly how many bytes. Right now, there we go. 52 bytes into the file. So no, it's on the top. Now As you scroll through it, you see some stuff that looks like gobbledygook, but you see some stuff that you can read, right? You can see here, I'm going to spread it out so it looks better. And hopefully folks can see that on the screen. You see here, for example, Wi-Fi connection. You're like, all right, so this might indicate a Wi-Fi connection, right? Then you see here a obvious GUID, right? And then you see the value like any dancer and some other values, right? So I can read those. So that's how the hex editor shows it to me. Now, based on our understanding of SecB files, we know how to get to the data portion of that SecB file. And we know that that data portion is in protobuf, right? So how is this useful to what I'm showing you? Imagine you're working on a device, you run your tooling, and you get all your SecB artifacts from the protobuf. And when you did your verification and validation, you go to the biome folder and you find a SecB file that nobody has seen before. Your tool has never come across it, therefore it's not on your report. And it's something, the file, the name of the folder is descriptive of something important. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do this. I'm going to open my hex editor and give it a quick look to figure out what could it possibly be. What can I read from this thing? All right. And it's like, okay, I never seen this before. This is interesting. Again, this is kind of like an example. I'm going to now go and look at that with the knowledge I have on how to work these type of files. So what I'm showing now everybody is a script in Python on how to manipulate some of these. So the first thing I do is I import a library done by Alex Caithness and CCL Solutions Group to deal with SecB1 files, version 1, as I showed you, right? And I know I need a library to deal with protobuf. And this is the thing, folks. I don't expect you to know how to code, and you don't need to know how to code. I need you to, or at least I would like you to understand the thought process behind it, of how you need to do this, or from my perspective, right? You don't have to agree, from my perspective. So I import those libraries. I have a little function here. Function means a set of commands or routines to do something repetitively, right? That's going to convert timestamps, right? You don't have to understand it, just how it works in Python, just the concept. I'm going to get my file, as you can see here in line 13. I'm going to get the data out. That happens in the highlighted part. And if you cannot see this, if you're listening, it's fine. That's not the point. And then I figure out if there's data in a record, and if there's data in a record, now this is the important part. I'm going to take the data portion of that SecB file, which is in protobuf, and I'm going to take that protobuf out and put it in a format that I can actually do something with it. So I'm going to run the scripts to show you, right? Like I mentioned, it's going to take that file, it's going to look for records that have data, and if a record has data, it's going to pull that protobuf out. And it's going to show it to you in a format that's easier to understand. All right, so as you can see here, you see sections. You see this, I'm going to highlight a section. That is one record. There's a space there, or a new line, and there's another record. And there's a space here, and there's another record. So now I'm looking at the same data on two different ways. I'm looking at it protobuf, as the protobuf is being kind of converted or kind of manipulated in a way. And now I'm also looking at it, how it looks straight from a hex view perspective. And the two tools, I'm using two tools right now. I'm using the script in Python, and I'm using a hex viewer or hex editor. And notice this. If you look at, I'm going to pick the last record on the screen. This last record here, you can see in the bottom really easily to pick out, what is this, Heather?
The
Can you see it? The GUID, exactly. Yeah. Boom, right? So just by looking at it, like, have I seen that before in the hex viewer? Yeah, I seen that GUID right there. And before that GUID, in some of the records, I see any dancer, right? That's a possible router name. Well, right. Do I see it on my view in the script? I don't.
No.
I do not see it. So if you think looking at data from two different tools is not important, it's extremely important, right? I'm using the hex viewer to be able to kind of look at that view and get some insight about it. And as I'm trying to manipulate the file to get that data out in a format that's digestible for my stakeholders, I'm noticing differences, right? It's not that the data is not there. It's there. It's just encoded differently. And having the two tools viewing at it is aiding me in perceiving that. Imagine if I just started straight up with my script, working on that SecB file. I would have missed that whole any dancer value. I would have missed it, right? And let me give folks a background on this. The way protobuf works is designed to work is you take that data, you serialize it into a protobuf, and hopefully it comes accompanied by a dot proto file. This dot proto file defines all the records and values within that protobuf file. So then you can convert them properly. What happens in real life, that dot proto file, that's that description of it, never comes with your protobuf file, never comes with it. And if you might ask yourself, but why, if we need it? Well, because this data is designed to be ingested by an app or by an operating system. And the app and the operating system, or whatever it is that's digesting it, they know how to interpret that. That dot proto knowledge is part of the app, but we don't have it, right? Somewhere in there that we might not be able to pull it out, right? So what does that mean? It means that I need to then look at this and make those assumptions myself. If you look at this record that I'm showing you, this is what the library assumes that to be, and it's a guess. And it goes back to what I said previously, and thanks to Josh, he said soapbox, not rant, soapbox. In my soapbox a second ago, right? There's tolerances. It's not zeros or ones in a sense, right? Although they are. The tool is making an interpretation. In this sense, it decided to interpret that any dancer ASCII value as a big, long kind of integer number. That's how it decided to do it. And is it wrong? It's not wrong. It's a different way of presenting it, but it's not the preferred way of presenting it, right? Does that make sense, Heather?
Yeah, it absolutely makes sense. And I think a lot of people, including myself, at one time would just scroll right by it and not even realize it was anything.
Oh, yeah, and thank you for that. That's exactly the point I'm trying to make. Look at that same data, two different ways of looking at it, because each will give you some insight. And notice we're looking at data in this example that's not parsed by the tool. So you cannot lean on the tool or just the one tool to do it for you, right? You have to lean on yourself and with your knowledge of how this works, right? So the next step is, and now this is a part, and this is I'm sorry, I'm kind of talking about over myself. I get really excited with this topic. This is the main point I want to show you, right? Use multiple tools, especially when you're looking at data you haven't seen before, so you can get insights into what's happening within it. Now, I'm going to go a step further and show you how you can take scripting knowledge to take it to the next level, right? So let's do that. So I know specifically that before the GUID, there's a value that some records, a lot of them, should say any dancer. And I know that because I looked at the hex, okay? So if I look at my record, you'll see the records and the way that the Python library has presented to me, presents it to me in keys and values, okay? Kind of like a JSON file format. In Python, it's actually called a dictionary, okay? So you got key one, and within that key, there's other values, and you can have other keys within that one. So the first one is going to be a key one, and then another key one, and then a value, which is Wi-Fi connection, has a little B on the front that means binary. So the tool is interpreting that as a binary. So the question is, well, how do I know how is the tool interpreting each of them individually? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the code, and when I take my data, that protobuf data, and I decode it, right, deserialize it into a dictionary, my library that I use, by the way, it's done by Yogeshka 3. He kind of built it on Blackbox protobuf library. It's going to provide to me my protobuf data here under proto stuff. That's how I called it. And then I use another variable called types. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to only show you types. That will be the interpretation the library is making for you. So hopefully folks can see that on the screen. You see there that for the first key, the type is going to be a message, and that message moved to the right is going to be bytes. Does that make sense? Notice that the Wi-Fi connection had a little B in front of it. Well, it has bytes in front of it. That's why it's making that interpretation, right? If you go down, and if we remember from the previous image, our GUID was on key 5 and also had a little B in front of it, which is also bytes. Right? You're with me with that one, Heather? Does that make sense so far?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So we mentioned that before the GUID, that's where the device name was, right? If we look at the key before it, key number 3 is type message, and then type is fix64. Okay? That's a type of data. And I'm not going to bore everybody with the details, but in protobuf, there's 6 types of wires, and each wire can represent multiple data types. And that's why tooling is not perfect. It makes assumptions, and we need to realize that tools makes assumptions. We need to validate them and change them as appropriate. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go and I'm going to get, you know what? I want to see that as bytes. I want to let my operating system interpret that as bytes and see what it has. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take all this interpretation, I'm going to copy it, and then I'm now going to put it in my code. Let's put it up here. It's not the best way of putting it, but for the example, it's going to work. And I'm going to call this, I'm going to call it new types. Right. Not really new. I should have called it like altered types or something, but that should work, right? Let me hide the documentation view that came up. Okay, perfect. And now I'm going to change a couple of things. The first thing I'm going to change is I'm going to go and this type, instead of message, I said I'm going to name it bytes. Okay. And then I'm going to take that definition, I'm going to apply it to my data. Okay. And I know folks that cannot see what I'm doing because you're listening. What I'm doing is I'm taking that little change that I made, and I'm now giving that change to my library so then it can apply it. So let me see if I applied it correctly. If not, then I'll mess with it and we'll get it done. We're almost done here. All right. So I'm going to apply it, and look, immediately after I apply that change, you see that the third key we're talking about. What do you see there, Heather?
Any dancer, my Wi-Fi network.
Now we can actually read it. Was the script or the library wrong? It was not wrong. It was making an interpretation because it had to. I am the examiner. I made the examination. I go in, and based on my understanding, I can present this properly. All right. Another good one. Folks that are watching, you'll see key number 2 has a big long integer. Key number 3, another really long integer. It's interesting because the first, 10 or 12, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 10 or 12 values from left to right on this integer, they're the same, right, on both. To me, that's significant. That usually means that this could be a timestamp, right? Possibly, right? So I'm going to save everybody the details. I'm going to go and look for key 2 and 3, and I'm going to change them. And 2, instead of fixed 64, I'm going to change them to doubles. That's another data type. And if you never heard about them, that's motivation for you to start working this year on figuring out what that means. I'm going to execute it. And now that long integer now becomes a decimal. I say decimal, but a fractional number, right? Because it has a little dot there. And if you're familiar with WebKit timestamps in iOS, just by looking at it, you know it is a timestamp. Okay? And again, if you're not familiar with timestamps, how they look before they're converted to a human readable timestamp, that's also something you can work on during the year. So to make things, long story short, what I'm going to do is I'm going to now, the timestamps, just to show you the example, I'm going to take one of the timestamp fields. I'm going to use my function to convert timestamps that I defined at the beginning of my script, and I'm going to just apply it. I'm only going to show the timestamps this time. And there you go. This is one of the timestamps for each record, all right? If I want to show the other timestamp, I'm going to go and do that conversion and each of the timestamps, right? There we go. So now this is the part that becomes even more interesting. You might be, well, what do these timestamps mean? It means that you have to take your test phone, generate some data, connect to some Wi-Fi devices, keep track of when you connected, disconnected, and all that. Take that data out, do this analysis, and then try to make sense of it. And these are connection and disconnection times. And some of them are pretty kind of like concurrent to each other, right? So even though they're split in little pieces, they're pretty much back to back to back to back, which to me would indicate some sort of continuous connection, okay? But that only comes from you actually testing that data and making sense of it. All right. So the takeaways from this portion: use more than one tool when looking at data. And I'm not talking about only, use Axiom and Belkasoft or FTK and Physical Analyzer. I'm talking about when you get a data set you haven't seen before, look at your hex view, use your libraries, then use the corporate tools, use open source tools to get knowledge, a broad knowledge of it. Then pick what's your more the way you dominate, or you are more skillful in dealing with these things, and start aggregating that knowledge so your stakeholders can have the best view of the data that you can provide to them. I like to use Python. It doesn't have to be Python, it could be something else. The point is, apply that process. Don't just scroll to things without thinking about them. Apply that process and you will get really, really good results.
Yeah, you definitely will. And like I said before, anything that looked like that, I normally, when I first started my career, would have scrolled right past. So learning what all of these data stores are like, how they work, what tools work best for them, really, really important.
Absolutely, and let me know. I'll be straight. You'll be like, Alex, that was breaks. That was too long. It was too high level or too low level, and don't do it again. Then we won't do it again. But let us know if there's value on that, and if not, then maybe give us some ideas on how can we provide value to the community on this type of deep level topics. So we would appreciate that.
Yeah, very good. So we are at the end, and we have the meme of the week.
Yes.
Cannot skip the meme of the week. Let me share it.
That's my favorite part of every episode.
I think this was your first, right? Your first meme of 2024. And we have the investigative team standing around the digital forensic examiner who appears to be the only one doing any work.
Yeah, there's this poor guy like in a hole, right, doing some work in a hole. Maybe they're looking for a pipe or something, who knows, and everybody's looking for this poor guy in the hole trying to make the work. Yeah, that's us. It's us.
Yeah.
And you might see like, oh, whatever, you're exaggerating. I was talking with some other examiners, and I've seen it. It's like they do, I don't know your agency, but my agency does file reviews, right? And what that means is at certain periods, management wants to know where the case at. I mean, what progress have you made on this case, right? Are you working on it and you need help, whatever? And I've seen in some instances, I'm not going to say what agency, but the update for the case is we're waiting on forensics. No, you're not. I mean, you can subpoena stuff. You can go and get some materials from the cloud and do some other things. You don't need to just sit and say, well, I'm waiting for the forensics. Write your report.
Always waiting on the forensics.
Yeah, that's like that's an excuse, man. Go do your job. I'll do mine. Don't worry about it.
I think it's a really, really good top contender already for meme of the year for 2024. But I had to pick what I thought was the meme of the year for 2023. So
there we go.
I will show you my favorite one from the entire year of 2023 is this one.
The winner is ta-da!
The winner is the digital forensics. I don't even know what those things are.
Three-headed dragon.
Yeah. Okay. So the acquisition, the parsing, and then you get to the analysis and reporting, which by the look of the face will be the area that the report is it's lacking, that the investigation is lacking.
Yeah.
But that was my favorite of the year. I'm sure somebody or several in the comments or comments later are going to disagree and think that you have a better meme of the year, but this one was my favorite.
Yeah, no, and I think it was the favorite of most folks that went by my LinkedIn because he had the most likes, and it's absolutely true. The three-headed dragon, which is our field, if we divide it into those three parts, we need to work on analysis and reporting, and not only from the level of the tools themselves, but us, because at the end of the day, even if the reporting of the tooling sucks, you're the one putting the stuff together, so it's kind of introspective. So I'm criticizing, but I'm also pointing myself out in the process. So pretty good. I like how Kevin calls Ghidorah. You know why this is? Heather? No?
No.
You gotta watch more Godzilla movies. Yeah, you need to watch Godzilla movies. See, I always give Heather a hard time because she loses a lot of movie references. So I'll keep giving you a hard time till the end of time.
I laugh at the movie references, but most of the time I'm not getting them. So sorry.
No, it's pretty neat. And before I leave, because I know I'm looking at the chat, I couldn't look at it as I was talking. Josh Hickman makes a good few points. Some of this protobus stuff in SegBs, timestamps tend to be in doubles, and he's making a point of GPS coordinates also tend to be in doubles, and it makes sense because GPS coordinates tend to be kind of fractional, right? You got 85 dot whatever, right? So it's represented in that type of fractional format. So again, if you're listening, and there's a lot of benefit to being in the chat, so I would recommend everybody to come join us live and be part of the chat. There's a lot of knowledge going there that we cannot get to. Good people in the chat, so we appreciate you, and we love you. Thanks for being here.
Yes, thank you.
And with that, we came to, I think, the longest show ever.
It is.
Again, thank you, everybody, and we'll do it. We'll do it again in a week in between.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody, and to that, we'll see you soon. Bye bye.